Hi everybody, it's Cash. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me today. I wanted to show you what happened when I tested the energy of Leonardo da Vinci's bedroom. It's not in Italy, as you might think. It's actually in France, specifically in a place called Amboise. It's a delightfully quaint and atmospheric old market town, and I mean old, dating all the way back to the 6th century, I think, and overlooking the Loire River. Joan of Arc rode through here in 1492 on her way into battle. Mary Queen of Scots made her home in the gigantic Chateau d'Amboise, an 11th century behemoth that dominates the skyline. But what really put Amboise on the map was none of that. It was the fact that Leonardo da Vinci lived out the final years of his life here. In 1515, he moved to this house, Chateau de Clos-Lucé, it's called. The King of France at the time was a big fan. He gave Leonardo a pension and allowed him to live here rent-free for the next 4 years. Leonardo painted, he organised royal pageants, he taught students, he invented stuff, and he helped design buildings, including the famous double helix staircase at the Chateau de Chambord. I'll come back to this in a later video. Leonardo's house was spectacular in its own way too. He had a private chapel to pray in, and a dining room where he'd organise vast feasts, perhaps too many actually, because he died of a stroke on May 2nd, 1519, in this room, on that bed, in the arms of the king, apparently, about which we will say no more.
This is supposedly the bed in which Leonardo da Vinci died. But when I went into the energy of this room and this bed, I didn't get the energy settling there. I got it moving over here and down into the floor. I guess somebody took him off the bed and put him on a stretcher and carried him out. That might explain it. But the energy shifted sideways off the bed and onto the floor. And when I touched the wall here, the original walls, I've had this before where the energy seems to come out and go down. Just come out and go down. Last time I thought it was something to do with grounding, earthing, maybe. But I don't know. The energy of the wall doesn't reverberate like some buildings do, these old buildings. It actually comes out and slopes downwards into the floor, as if the whole thing wants to cave in on itself and be done with it. Just escape whatever is going on in here and be done with it. Let's get away from here.
Leonardo begged to be buried in the royal chapel in the grounds of that castle I showed you in town, the Chateau d'Amboise, which was home to the royal court of France for a while, and even served as a prison at one time for this guy, the Emir Abd al-Qadir, an Algerian dissident. The palace is beautifully preserved.
Touching here is the stone of the council chamber, the old stone, not the newly renovated one, or the brick, but the old stone originally laid in this council chamber. And when I touch that, it's like the energy slides away from my hand, from under it. I'm only touching it lightly with the back of my fingers, but it's like the energy slides away and swills across the room, like to the other side, as if it were water. I guess being a council chamber, there was a swapping of information or advice or an exchange of views, something like that. It doesn't feel bad, it just feels like sloppy. It just feels like it runs away with me the moment I try to touch it. And flows away and stops on the other side. So there may have been healthy arguments, vibrant conversations, disputes, or whatever in here, more than likely. And the stone, the energy of the stone has absorbed that discourse, that exchange of views, that series of arguments, or whatever it might have been. But there's no holding it down. It doesn't stay in the stone. It swills away and goes across the room.
What people really come here to see, though, is Leonardo's tomb. I said he wanted to be interred in the Chateau's royal chapel in the grounds, and he was. Only during the French Revolution, the chapel burned down. And when workmen dug up the foundations, all they found was a jumble of loose bones belonging to sundry royals. And of course, nobody knew which bones were Leonardo's. However, there was one complete skeleton. So they just took that, randomly, and reburied it in the newly constructed chapel of Saint-Hubert. To this day, they claim this was Leonardo's resting place. And I mean, you know, anything's possible.
When I go into the energy of it, it's like there's a dark mass over here, and then I am directed. It's like I slide off, and I'm directed somewhere else. There's nothing here of any importance as far as I can tell. I slide off whatever that surface is and march off out of this area into light. So I may be wrong, but I have a feeling that Leonardo da Vinci is I'm like 99% certain he's not buried here, and he was buried elsewhere. But it's a beautiful place, and you can see all the stained glass windows and stuff. It's very ornate, very beautiful, but not the actual thing that it's famous for.
Anyway, authenticity issues aside, the palace is definitely worth your time if you're passing by. Same with Leonardo's house, which has 300,000 visitors traipsing through it every year. And of course, the town of Amboise is a pure delight. Lots of quaint, pokey lanes, clothing stores that feature a stylish reminder of what the king used to do to traitors, and some fabulous patisseries. I couldn't resist buying a pastry at the Bigot Cafe, after which I had a splendid lunch on Rue de la Tour, in a restaurant whose toilets had this on the seat. Thankfully, woke culture hasn't reached France yet. Next time, I'll take you to the Palace de Chambord. We'll have a closer look at Leonardo's mind-boggling double helix staircase, test the energy of a medieval balcony, and also of a suit of armour to see how the guy really died. All of that and more is coming up very soon.